Hello, everyone.
Hi, Nick. Hi.
Hi, Nick.
How you guys doing?
Nick's like that. That's me, did mine too. Let's go for it.
Not exactly, but welcome to another episode of Mystical Carousel Show. Today we are doing another very special episode. We are continuing on with part 2 of Autism Awareness. And I know we'll definitely have some great conversations involved in this. I'm trying to come up with some topics of my own to bring up when it comes to that. But Wayne, I know you said you brought up a couple things, but either way, hopefully we, I guess best I can really say is we can kind of continue on where we left off from last time, from a few weeks ago, which I don't really remember exactly where we left off though.
Well, do you know what? I'm going to reverse it just a tad wee bit back the way, right? But sure. I'm going to start. In fact, Winnie-o and Belly-o. You were speaking. Obviously, I'm going to reverse it now. We've got 4 people in the chat. Can somebody say hello, please, so that we know we can hear you and you can hear us. We can hear you. Aye, Lois, good one. So going into it, guys, you were talking about obviously the treatment and the diagnosis. So why don't we use that as a stepping stone to start it off the show?
Yes.
We got now about 8 watching. Oh, hello, Peaceful Paranormal.
Hey, Peaceful Paranormal. So how difficult is it, guys, to get a diagnosis?
I think a lot of the time it depends on which authority is doing the diagnosing, because some authorities are quicker than others, and I know for a fact that there are some that are so snowed under with the amount of diagnoses that have got to be done that they have got a really big backlog. I'm under the North Essex and Suffolk healthcare, and when my oldest son Ethan was originally suspected of having autism at the age of 2, it was first suspected. The whole process didn't come to fruition until he was 11 years old.
Wow.
So it took 7 years from when it was first suspected through to finally getting education healthcare plan, which until recently was called the statement. It's now what they call an EHCP, the education healthcare plan. When we first put in for it, the council refused it because apparently the school hadn't done enough on the accounting side. What this entailed was that the school and the specialist teacher, the Senko teacher, would have to account for everything extra that they paid out for, specifically for him. And because the teacher hadn't done that, they said, there's no point because you haven't spent all of the money that we were giving you for him in the first place. It wasn't until then she realised that she then went back and accounted for everything, and the council straight away went, it's given. But the process took so long, and how it's so back to front, because if you were to appeal a decision, it would actually be quicker to reapply with a new set of application than it would be to appeal. At the time, it would take 6 weeks to start a new application, but 6 months to appeal the existing one. So we said, that's fine, we'll just go back to the drawing board and we'll start again. And by then, the school that we wanted him to go to wouldn't take him because he didn't have an EHCP, even though we told them that he was under the process of having one being done. And he ended up in the school that I didn't want him particularly going to, but he seems to be doing all right. But it's difficult because now my youngest son, Freddie, is suspected of having ADHD. He's now 4, and so far it's taken a year. And the school, the nursery, everybody that's dealt with Freddie all says he needs an EHCP. And yet the council will not give it to him because they're saying there's insufficient evidence, even though there's a folder that thick full of different evidence of the quirks that he has, the breakdowns, the meltdowns, the temper tantrums, the flight or flight responses that he has are totally random. And the council have said the same thing. You know, we can't give it to you because there's not enough evidence. So we said, right, then we'll let the evidence build and then we'll reapply rather than appealing. And it's all about time. I've spoken to other parents that have had autistic children in other areas of the UK, and some have been quicker, some have been longer.
Yep.
And I think it needs to have a system where there's a central system that processes it all, a specialist hospital that just deals with the autism and the diagnosis and the aftercare. That way the system can be put under one big roof and it can all be run smoothly from there. And then all the people that would respond to that need in your own area can then respond accordingly. But they don't, because it's all about the money, where the money can go and what healthcare service can get what money for what. And in the meantime, it's a poor individual that has to suffer waiting for that diagnosis. And myself, my mother has seen similarities to the way my oldest was up to the age of 15. I was exactly the same. And my mum turned around and said, you and Nathan have got the same thing. But I said, I'm 49 years old. What point is it me now going to the doctor and saying, I think I've got high functioning autism. I would like to be diagnosed. Because by the time everything gets put through and they go, yes, you've got high functioning autism, it's going to be too late. I've dealt with all my problems.
There's a lot of things that are coming out now that a lot of people are suffering, and it is taking years to diagnose. The problem you get is also depending on where you are, depending on where you are in the world and depending on where obviously you're at. I mean, our healthcare system is absolutely diabolical. There's I'll not hit any qualms on that one. It really is diabolical. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Guess who just came in?
Hi everyone.
Hi.
Okay.
Hey Kate. Right, before we go right in here, I'll quickly run through the comments. Hey, peaceful paranormal. Scott, I'm going to be really nice to you tonight because it's a serious show, and I'm going to be nice. So thank you for coming in, young sir. Hi, Laura. Hey, Nigel. Peaceful Paranormal says it's extremely expensive here in the States if you're not diagnosed as a child. They don't bother unless you have money, that is. Hey, Kate. I don't even know why I'm saying hey, Kate, just here. Yeah, it was all good. Nigel, hope you're well. I'm just going to skip the conversation slightly. Hey, Wolf Royalty Paranormal. Problem is too many hands went in the pot, definitely.
Hey,
Robert says that same happens down here. Too much hassle for them all to put it together. Hey, Sarah Louise, long time no see. Again, it does depend in part of the world where you are. Like in America, you guys, I don't know, like your healthcare system, but I know that you guys pay for a lot of your healthcare. And whilst over in the UK, I can't really speak from an English Wales point of view, but from a Scottish point of view, it's absolutely despicable, the healthcare sector, and a lot of people think like coming over here, oh, it's going to be great, you know, get free healthcare, blah 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 blah. But I can't even begin to go into how hard that is. Waiting lists are getting longer. Obviously, I can't say why, because of YouTube. But that year that everything went wrong, shall we say. The waiting list became more longer and longer and longer. You've got to obviously put priorities first, who needs it first. I know somebody firsthand who it took her daughter to fall out a window before her daughter was actually diagnosed with high functioning autism. And it really shouldn't be like that. It really shouldn't be at the stage where accidents need to happen, like Wayne's talking about his situation in life. It shouldn't matter on age. If somebody comes to you for a problem, then they should be able to fix it. And people are going to hate what I'm about to say, and please forgive me, but it's the truth. But they get a good enough wage to do a job.
Yeah.
And whilst there's some people out there who misdiagnose, now it's all, as I said in the last show, it's coming to light that people that are usually diagnosed with BPD and bipolar are found out to either have ADHD or autism. And you've got to say to yourself, when is enough is enough? Yes, they have similar diagnoses, similar symptoms. But then there comes a point where you've got to say, no, we've really got to break this down, and we've got to pull it further and say, well, what is the differences? So it's interesting tonight that we've actually got everybody in, people for the States, Lynn being in Wales, you guys being in England, and me being the lonely Scotswoman.
Well,
The thing is,
here's just something quick in the chat. Of course, Robert White from Australia is watching. So, yeah, we got different parts of the world focusing on this.
And it is very awkward because once you get that diagnosis, the door gets closed.
Yeah.
They shut the door on you, literally. They just turn around and go, yeah, he's got ADHD or he's got high functioning autism. Then the door gets slammed on you. It was 8 years before I discovered I was entitled to carer's allowance. Because my son Ethan had the flight response, and he could just bolt off at any second without warning, and I was expected to chase after him. I then finally get told, after 8 years of him getting the diagnosis, he was getting the disability living allowance. After 8 years, I then finally found out I was entitled to carer's allowance.
Really?
So,
do you know what?
I asked them, how far back will they backdate it? Will they backdate it to the moment he was diagnosed? And they went, no, 3 months.
Oh my God.
So I lost out on thousands of pounds because no one told me I was entitled to carer's allowance.
Yeah.
This is the thing with some people don't actually know. So you're saying they get the diagnosis and the door is shut, and yeah, this is literally what we are. This is what we're hearing, and it's sort of, I guess it's kind of the reason why I do what I do, because we offer that after support and all of this stuff. But a lot of the people that give that diagnosis, they don't know what support's available. They know how to diagnose, but they don't know how to actually, you can look down the route of carer's allowance. You can, depending on the severity, you can look at PIP. You can look at, other different means of support that you can actually get.
Yeah.
If the person diagnosing you doesn't know that, because there is no, you've got a trained psychologist or somebody with a psychology or psychiatry background that can do the diagnosing. If they don't actually know the level of support, if they've not worked in the social sector to know the levels of support that are actually available, all they're going to do is hand you a bit of paper going, congratulations, you've got autism. And you go, okay, what am I meant to do now? And there is so little information, and there's so much wrong information. Oh my God, so much wrong.
That's where I think that's where we need to have it sort of near enough in one building, so that you could have the top floor is where your diagnosis is given, and then as you're on your way out, there's people sitting there saying, right, your son has been diagnosed with XYZ. this is the support you can get for this. That's the support he will get for that. That's the support he'll get for that. The only thing I was told about was what they call a maze course. And it was 12 weeks. And it was literally for parents such as myself, myself and my ex-wife, and I think it was about 10 other parents, all went to this course for 12 weeks. And we learned all of the little things that they will go through and that we've got to expect to see, and how we can deal with it, how we're able to help them get over what issue they may have as they're going along. And it was very informative, and it opened so many doors that we weren't unaware of. And if we hadn't have gone to that maze course, we wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until talking to people such as yourself that these doors were then opened. And we discovered with my youngest, Freddie, he was going through buggy after buggy. He was destroying them. And someone turned around and said, you can get a reinforced buggy. We said, but he's 4 years old. He's too old for them. No, it's an older buggy, but it's reinforced. He will not be able to damage that one. And we managed to find a charity here in Colchester that provided £275 towards this new buggy, and we had to pay an extra £65, I think it was, on top to get it. And it's proved its worth. If we have to go and pick his sister up from school and he comes with us in the buggy, he can't get out of that. And it is so sturdy, you can ram it up a curb and it just doesn't do anything to it. It's almost indestructible. But we wouldn't have known if we hadn't have gone to that maze meeting. We wouldn't have known about all the other things. So we wouldn't have been able to have found that continuing support when Freddie was diagnosed.
Yeah.
But it should be there and readily available right from the word go. You shouldn't have to find out about it yourself.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I'm going to
not.
Sorry, Bill. I'm going to jump into America. Right, Kate, Nick, what's it like for you guys over there to get a diagnosis? What is it? Pretty much the same hoops that you guys have got to get through, or is there something different you guys do in America compared to the UK?
You can go first, Nick. I think you have more experience.
Yeah, definitely. I think in a way it has been the same, but at the same time, I think it's really changed over the last number of years, because for myself having autism, my parents really didn't know until I had it until I was about 3 years old. So, but now my mom has been telling me recently that I'm not exactly sure how they're able to do it, but she recently told me that there's a new way that you can diagnose people with autism, even like before they're born, before the age of 3. But as far as like not just the diagnosis, but anything else, I guess from my own experience, it's kind of questionable and debatable as of right now, because again, I've had my ups and downs.
I hope you don't mind me talking, Nick. Feel like you're asking you for a personal experience point of view.
No, not at all. I'm very open to talking about it.
Awesome. Kate, I know you're obviously your daughter. You've got 2 children, one child, 1, 2.
I've just got a little girl. Yeah, but my nephews and my niece. So 3 of my nephews are on the spectrum. Two of them, I guess you would say, one of them is high functioning. The other one is, well, he was non-verbal, but he's definitely doing really, really well. But no, my daughter, I have to say, here in the States, we've had a really, really good course of action for anything that isn't considered, like when children hit milestones. If certain milestones aren't hit, then the pediatrician, especially that we have, was very, very good and on it. sometimes maybe a bit too on it compared to like other doctors, but I've obviously really appreciated that. So with my daughter, she had issues with feeding. She limited her food so much she would only eat 5 foods, and that was terrifying. And I often wondered then, is this a neurodivergent thing? Like, what's going on? So I got put forward for feeding therapy, but that was private. I think it's really hard to get state help here in the States.
Yeah.
With speech therapy, I had a choice because she's got speech delay. If she could go with the state, but then I would have to go through the system. It would take 3 months, and somebody comes to your house and does speech therapy with them. However, I have friends that have the state speech therapy sessions, and they have very mixed reviews about it. Whereas we were lucky enough to kind of go through the system and get private again for my daughter. And I have to say, like, she's making huge progress there. So that's kind of what's annoying. Like, there's no kind of, it's really hard to say, like, there's no kind of pool of equality when it comes to help with state versus private. And that's quite annoying because why isn't it like that? Why isn't it universal? Like, why is it so different? But I have to say the States have really been on it with children. I need to ask the guys in the UK, I don't know if this is true, for like certain regions, but one of my friends said that in her region, her son has dyslexia, and the schools have said that dyslexia is no longer funded in their region, so that all of their funding has gone to autism, so children with autism. And I'm like, why have they had to choose? Why can't they do both? Why is there not, I just don't get it. I really don't. So yeah, I just wanted to ask you guys in UK, Scotland, England, have you heard that? Like, schools have just dropped dyslexia?
I haven't really, because obviously I was late diagnosed in life when I got diagnosed with dyslexia. I was like one of the kids that could shelter it. It could really mask it. Don't get me wrong, like, it would be hard, and then I would like make excuses if they wanted me to read in front of class. I would be like, I need the bathroom, or I don't feel well, or anything just to escape what was going on. And it wasn't until I really struggled in college with stuff that it actually came to light that's what was wrong. Even when Nick asked me to do his audiobooks, and I'm quite honest and open with it about this, and Nick knows this, but I would try and look for the most easiest name and hope for the best, that Nick hadn't used big words on me. So I think there's only one audio book, and I'm very honest and open about this, and I was honest and open with Nick. If I can't, there's only one audio book, I think I missed one word because I couldn't say it. And I would say, like, I can understand in some aspects why that they would more focus on autism rather than dyslexia. No saying that dyslexia is any less important, but that you've got, like, funding wise, money wise, there's a lot that you need to get somebody, especially who is really bad with autism, to the point where they're non-verbal, and that there's a lot of things that cost a lot of money. Things like a sensory room, if that person needs 24/7 hour care, and it's a life that it's not really fair, to be honest. But that, like, I would say, in the government have a lot to answer for when it comes to healthcare. But that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, so we know that the government have actually cut funding. And this is something that you won't see on the news. It's not being shouted about, but the government have cut what they call special education funding for mainstream schools, for any types of schools. They've actually cut down the amount of funding in some areas, and it does go by location to location. But in some areas, they've actually cut the funding up to 47%. And you've got a lot of people at the moment that are shouting about autism, and this is what's in the forefront. And if you have an autistic child that has the diagnosis and the funding's there, but they're still not achieving and they're still not deemed to be hitting the markers that they should be, and it comes in a negative light from the school. This is why they're putting all of the funding towards autism, because they're trying to do yes, we're inclusive for everybody. But actually, what they're doing is they're focusing on autism and they're completely neglecting the dyslexia, the dyspraxia, the ADHD, all of that side, because people are shouting louder about autism at the moment. Give it 6 months when potentially ADHD or Tourette's or whatever it might be is at the forefront of the fight. That's where the funding's going to go. It's basically they throw the funding at where they need to tick the boxes for, so that they're not the next school up on Panorama. Unfortunately.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Guys, I'm going to quickly run through these comments because they're building like nobody's business. Laura says, my husband has high functioning autism and he was 48 when he was diagnosed, so get clarification, especially for your own sense of knowing, and explains how you are and who you are. It's a long process, but it's helped my husband loads. Scott says he's good. Wolf Royalty Paranormal says the other issue is that the only support up to a certain age here. Peaceful Paranormal says autism is genetic. If children have it, more than likely one or more likely parent have it some extent as well. Peaceful Paranormal totally agrees. Robert says the year of the beverage. Why is these comments running away from me? Laura says, though I want to point out, though the diagnosis of autism has helped him understand himself, there is no support from any professional whatsoever. Literally, you have autism, deal with it. Noreen's found a way on. She had messaged me to say hi everyone. The government highlights, I can say that word by the way, I'm just trying to censor it out. Highlights the benefits bill, yet how many people ain't claiming when they're entitled to the support? Robert says 4 years waiting for both boys to get into National Disability Insurance Scheme here. Laura says, I've tried so many avenues to get support for my husband, but nothing. He saw a psychologist for 6 weeks before diagnosis. But what about the support for afterwards, for wives, for children? There's nothing. I'm still learning daily, and I cannot express how difficult it is, not just for me, but for my daughter and for my husband, Craig. Peaceful Paranormal says, I'm 55. In the last 3 years, I've been diagnosed with ADHD, CPTSD with a dissociative side and DID. I'm not sure what D is. I'm very sure that also I'm autistic and dyslexic. I'm permanently disabled now and have absolutely no assistance at all. Hi Eileen. Hey Pickle Tom. Hey Pickle People. Peaceful Paranormal says there's no support for neutral. Come on, Wayne, help me with this big word.
Neurodivergence.
I looked at the states. I'm just going to cut out the conversation tonight, guys. Peaceful, paranormal, none. All right, so that's. Hello,
Dimitar.
hiya.
Yeah, Dimitar from Bulgaria, one of our international.
Yay,
viewers.
hey. Eileen says, my friends have removed her non-verbal children from her special school. She's coming home covered in bruises, not good, looking for another school. We'll have to keep the child at home in the meantime. Autism has such an impact on the family unit. Nori says, in my area, a lot of special needs schools have closed. Laura says, but there's focusing on autism in children and not in adults. Peaceful Paranormal says, in my opinion, all of these neutral, that word, are on the same spectrum. I'll get to it at the end. I'll say it in my sleep tonight. Nori says the other thing that seems to be happening is some children are getting passed around without getting education because each place they're referred to are coming back as can't meet their needs. Here's the problem, and I know this is a big comparison, right? And I'm going to bring up Noreen's comment again. I used to work in care. As everybody knows, I spent a long time, I spent nearly 20 years doing care. And here's the problem. It's not about sometimes that they can't meet their needs. It's sometimes that they don't want to.
Yeah. They want the easy cases, don't they?
Uh-huh.
Problem is, as well, though, it makes it difficult now because my son had an issue, and straight away I was into the school, and I was absolutely fuming because he was getting detention for playing truant. Now, some autism sufferers end up having a physical disability as well, and my son has got an immune system issue, where his immune system has attacked his hip. And now his hip is fused in two places at a 30-degree angle. He now cannot do PE at school. He's facing to have a hip replacement around Christmas time. He was then given a detention for playing truant from PE, even though they knew exactly where he was. He couldn't have just walked out to school. So I've gone in there fuming away, gone into the reception, and I've asked to speak to the headmaster of the school, his Senko teacher, and his head of year. And they've gone, what's the problem? I said, you breaking the Disability Act of 2010 will be a start. Get someone down here now. And I've never seen 5 members of staff move so fast. They went and found where all the teachers were, and in the end, the Senko teacher had just come out of a meeting, and she saw me standing there fuming. She said, come on into the office and we'll have a chat. And I literally turned around and said, what on earth is going on? Your job as his Senko is to inform every teacher that teaches my son that he has got issues. And under the Disability Act of 2010, you're not doing your job. I could have your guts for garters. And she was like, right, I'll deal with it straight away. And from that moment onwards, not a problem. But you've got to go in there and rattle the sabre, otherwise nothing gets done. They just pass it off. And if you don't,
we've just had the same in my family. A child of a similar age, right?
Yep.
And what we're finding out now is they're trying to get rid of these people, even though they've got a duty of care, because they know that these kids have got certain problems, and they're supposed to be telling the other teachers what they can and can't do, what the limitations are, and what, you know, how to be with them and all that lot. But what the finding is now, because we've just had the same, exactly, honest to God, exactly the same thing. And what they're doing, they're getting rid of the kids out of school because they don't want to take responsibility. Am I right, Belle?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
But under the Disability Act, they can't do that.
But they're still
you start putting legislation at people and they move. And that's the one thing, sort of basically with the support that we do and the work we do with parents after diagnosis and everything else, we say to them, you have to make sure that you are shouting loud, you have to make sure that you're heard, and we actually give them like fact sheets around the Equality Act 2010, everything that it covers, what they can use and everything else. And yeah, there were so many cases, but exactly as you said, Lynn, they are trying to get the problem children out of their schools, so they can say, well, we weren't able to meet their needs, so we had to move them on to a place that was more suitable. But actually, what they want to do is get the problem children out and have the good children there, so they can get the good grades and the marks, and the governors can get the bonuses and everything else.
And do you know what else they're doing as well? Because some of these children have to go out to the area to go to schools that are suited, right? Even if it's big schools, they've got departments there that will look after them better than what local schools will, right? So what they're doing, those kids who are not in that catchment area, who have got these disabilities, they're the ones they're getting rid of, because they don't want to take responsibility just for them children or for the children who are out of the catchment area from there. They want to get them back to where they've come from. And it ends up where they're not getting the help, because even though that school might be doing that now, it's never done that, but they're going to go to a school where they haven't got any help.
Yeah.
So that's what they're doing. They're kicking them out. They're sending them back to the local area without the help that they need.
But doesn't that just prove that the whole educational system isn't working?
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, so I did teacher training 12 years ago, and I saw the issues then. And that's when we had Michael Gove as the Minister for Education. And he was, I'm not going to swear, but he was awful. Like, honestly, he was the one that was like, oh, we're going to have to take away music and drama and art. And then they were just focusing on English, maths and science. And, you know, that's kind of where it all started. And then all of this, and Ofsted became God, you know, because it's all about grades. Of course it is. And it's all about ticking boxes.
That's
having academics rather than artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really.
And that's, honestly, after I finished that year of teacher training, I just thought there's something so wrong about this system, and it's horrendous and it's awful, and something fundamentally needs to change. And I really hope it does, but I don't think it will. You know, they need to change the whole concept of a school and education. And some free schools kind of trying, forest schools, you've got other concepts of what education should be. But honestly, we just need somebody young, fresh, innovative to come into education and change the whole system. It's so outdated and it's not working. And
The problem
it's such a
you've got
shame.
is you've got somebody in power in the government, and I'm trying to be very diplomatic in what I say here. You've got somebody in power in the government that oversees the education sector or oversees the health and social care sector that has absolutely no idea about it. They've not set foot in a school in decades. You have got people making decisions regarding health and social care that have never worked a care shift in their life, and they're the ones that are actually playing God. And it really does come down to that with the education, because the amount of young people who aren't getting diagnosed quick enough, they're not getting the right support in education, and it is literally pushing them to the point of attempting or succeeding in unaliving themselves. And I'm being very, very careful what I say here, because they feel so unsupported. The parents can't do anything because they're not being signposted, because you have got somebody heading up that department in government that hasn't got a clue. It's like, come and work with us for a week. Come and actually sit in a school, go into a special education needs school, find out what they need. Go and work in a care home, find out what they need before you start playing God. Sorry, run over.
And it's just not. It's not just in this situation either. It's right down the board. We've got regional traffic commissioners who are responsible for lorry firms and coach firms having their licenses, and these people are God. If you do something wrong in either industry, you're pulled up in front of the regional traffic commissioner. He rakes you over the coals, bans you from being a director of a business or whatever for so many years, literally ruins your life. And this guy may not have even driven a lorry or a coach in his entire life and wouldn't even stand a chance of driving one. He's responsible of telling you what you can and cannot do. And, you know, so it's not just in this situation, but I found it got my nerves. I know the reason why, but we don't label it anymore. It's not ADHD, or Asperger's or this. And I looked into it and I found out who Asperger was. And I'm like, seriously, just because he was that man and what he did, he was still responsible for labeling this disorder. So he should still get some credit for it. I know what he was.
Right.
And I know he was a very nasty man through what he did. But what he discovered, now, we can look through anything throughout history, and there would have been some form of wrongdoing for a discovery in the first place.
Yeah.
But what they've now done is they've turned around and made things more complicated. With my son Freddie, they've just turned around and gone, he's autistic. That's it. If you want a specific diagnosis, our healthcare region will not touch him until he's 6 years old. They claim their diagnostic system for ADHD will not work on anybody under the age of 6. So we've got to wait another 2 years. And yet I've spoken to other people who have turned around and said, but my 4-year-old's just been diagnosed with ADHD.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, well, maybe I should move to your area then.
we do them from 2 years old. So we use, because we do ADHD and autism assessments privately as well, mainly to help with the backlog. But for ADHD, we use CARS and we use DIVA as well. So we use the two systems, which means we can diagnose. The youngest that we've actually done the assessments with was 2 years and 3 months old to the day. And we were able to actually identify, no, it's not ADHD, it was other stuff going on. But yeah, it's the quality of the people you've actually got there and the systems they're using. Because you will have people diagnosing ADHD that are using assessment tools that are from 15, 20 years ago that have absolutely no withstanding in the medical or professional field now. This is the frustrations that we have.
And this is why, like Laura Dawson said, I'm so sorry for ranting, but the system is broken. This is why I said that it needs to be a central system that works for autism and ASD sufferers, you know, from diagnosis to aftercare, because the system itself, like you're saying, is broken. It needs to be overhauled, and we know the NHS needs to be overhauled, full stop. They're severely underfunded, but they've got to look at the reasons why it's underfunded so they know where they can direct the money into the right places. You've got too many people working in offices for a start.
Too many chiefs, not enough Indians.
Yeah, if the money was centralised to the people that need it the most, which is the on-floor people that are directly given the care, then the NHS would work a lot better and the system would run in everybody's favour. But there's too many other issues going on in the background as well, like the amount of people using the NHS is increasing, but the money isn't. So they're standing there saying, we're going to build better hospitals. It's all right building better hospitals and bigger hospitals, but you need the staff to man it. And it will be the same with a diagnostic centre for autism. You build it, you've got to have the people to run it, which means more people need training.
Yeah, the same with schools. I mean, when you look at didn't they have that phase where they're like, we're going to make all schools academies or something like that? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Totally pointless. It just makes things like, from my experience, from what I've seen, that just only increased problems. It like nothing really helps. So I just feel like also education is severely underfunded. There's not enough teachers. There never has been for decades now. There's not the training available. It's ridiculously expensive to become a teacher in the first place, and you don't really get that back. And it needs to be smaller classrooms, more focused. It needs to have such a huge diversity in education, which it's not. It's just such a shame. And
I think some schools aren't too bad. I mean, the school my oldest goes to always used to have a really bad reputation where I lived, but then they pulled the old building down. They built an all multi-purpose usage school. They filled it all with all brand new teachers, all new staff. And to start off with, everybody all thought, oh, wow, this is quite an up-and-coming school. So they started sending the children there. The problem was the local children, different case altogether. So there was still this element there that people disliked. But when it came to things like the Senko staff and things like that, I've only met a couple of Senko teachers from different schools, but this my son's Senko teacher is second to none. You tell her there's an issue, she deals with it. You know, as soon as he started there, it was a breakout pass. So if he gets too stressed out, he can go to a room where he can be on his own and do his work in quiet, away from everybody else. Uniform pass. He doesn't like things tight around his neck, so he doesn't wear a tie. So he gets off of wearing certain parts of his uniform, leaving early passes. They tried to remove them, and I turned around and said, no, you can't remove it because it's all of the people around him that causes the problem. And with his hip being the way it is, he's going to end up going head first down the stairs. So he needs that leave an early pass. So, well, maybe he can leave after all the other children. I said, so you're going to delay him just because of all the other kids? In the meantime, his sister has just come out, sat in the car, and we've got to sit and wait for him to come out. Oh, no, maybe that won't be a good idea. So we'll keep that then. So they've bent over backwards. But other schools, they like's been said earlier, they don't really care. And they just look at it as a money earner for them. They can get extra money if they've got an autistic child in here. He's got an EHCP, so we can rake in X amount of thousands of pounds per year for this child.
Yeah.
We can get some new TVs and computers in for that much. Oh, that's brilliant. And they sweep it under the carpet thinking no one will notice. And like we said, if you don't stand up and have your voice heard, they'll walk all over you.
Oh, they do.
But when you go in and you rattle your saber and you say, right, I want heads, I want who's responsible for all of this, they panic and they go, oh my God, what do we do? What do we do? They haven't got a clue. They just don't know. And then when you set things down and you say, right, you're supposed to be doing this, and this, they go, okay, Mr. Segan, we'll get on to that. We'll do that straight away. And within days, it's been done. Other people aren't so lucky.
Telling them what they need to do. A lot of we went to, so my company, we went to the TESN show in London earlier in the year, and we must have spoke to well over 2,000 people. Because we were literally launching our education program to basically go and help teachers, teaching assistants, support staff, everybody, all about neurodiversity. And we launched the program there, and the amount of people that we were talking to, teachers and teaching assistants going, oh my God, yes, absolutely. We need this program. We need to know about this. We need to know what to do. We need to know how to support them, because there were people being recruited into roles, into Senko team roles, that have absolutely no experience of Senko. But talking to the teachers and the teaching assistants, they're going, yes, we need this. You talk to the head teacher, and believe me, I've spoken to a lot of them, and they say, oh, well, we have an e-learning program for that. Well, you can literally Google the answers and get a certificate. That does not teach you anything at all. And there are a lot of Senkos out there, Senko teams, that haven't got a clue what to do. You've got somebody that goes into a meltdown because of, the classroom is too close to the kitchen and they can smell what's cooking for lunch. So what do? They go and make them sit out in the corridor where it smells even worse. They don't understand these things, and this is what we try and get through to them, is basically, as this is developing, as we are learning more and more and more about, neurodiversity in general, but particularly ASD, you need to be topping up your knowledge. You can't just do a clicky learning and go, yes, I know what I'm doing, because you are literally looking after children. You need to know what you're doing. But a lot of the head teachers and the headmasters or whoever that we speak to, they're very, well, we've got what we need to tick a box and that'll do. Because again, it comes down to money, it comes down to funding, it comes down to who makes the decisions at the top. And until the people at the top, the very top, know about all of these issues, it's not going to get resolved.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, was it 4 or 5 schools here in Colchester that specialise in education for disabled children, both on the autism spectrum and physically disabled. And I used to work for one of the most popular schools for this area, Market Fields, and the headmaster, he was second to none. He knew exactly how to look after the children. He spoke to all the children on a daily basis. He'd stand outside and he'd greet all the children as they were coming in off the minibuses and the taxis. And I think he got an OBE, didn't he, or something, MBE? He got a knighthood for his services. And his interest in how the children developed over the years, because I think they went up to age 18. He was that interested in supporting those children that not only did he give them classrooms to learn in, he gave them a farm to work on. So they were learning basic skills on how to grow food, a shop to sell the food in, which they manned themselves. Wow. So that gave them more independence and learning how to deal with things out in the real world once they'd left the school.
That's how it should be. That's incredible.
And we're trying to get my youngest son, Freddie, once we've managed, if it becomes an issue, we're trying to get Freddie to go to that school. But we've got to wait to see what happens with the evidence for him as to whether he gets the HCP. And if they do, then we might be able to push for him to go there, because it's only down the road for us.
Yeah.
But it's just so difficult, because obviously we've got to wait a year for the evidence.
Definitely.
And it's crazy. We've got to wait for him to do something really serious, and he has hurt. He's just finished nursery now, but he has physically assaulted nursery staff.
Oh,
and they don't. And they we need evidence. Well, if he's just punched one of the nursery members of staff in the head, surely that's enough evidence to say he's got a violent streak in him. And it was the build-up, the reasons why he had that meltdown in the first place, that was the biggest alarm call. And yet they just turned around and said, no, not enough evidence. So what's he got to do? Is he got to unalive someone in the nursery before they go, oh, well, maybe we do need to get him sorted?
Yeah.
It gets to the extent, like we said, it gets to the extent where something serious happens before they look at it and go, oh, maybe we were wrong. Maybe we should have done this.
They've got a carer duty to look at everything.
They really do.
Yeah.
Real quick. Oh, sorry. Go on.
They technically do have a carer duty, but the problem is they don't care.
Well, we know this stuff.
And we've said this right from the start. They know what's going on. Oh, hang on, we got another person jumping in.
Yeah.
They know They know what's going on. They know what they've got to do, and yet they would rather sort of sweep it under the carpet as if it doesn't exist, and then just hope you'll go, oh, all right, then fair enough, and just get on with it.
Yeah, it makes their life a bit easier, doesn't it? That's what
For
it
us,
is. Yeah.
For us, we've got 4 children. We've got Ethan, 15, with high functioning autism. We've got Chloe now, who up until now thinks she was normal, but now because everybody else is being diagnosed with stuff, she thinks she's autistic. So she wants her to get her tested. Everybody in my family is dropping like flies with autism. I'm the one that's standing my ground and saying, I'm not being diagnosed. What's the point now? I'm too old for all this. I'm not going to bother. Ellen's now currently being told she's got dyspraxia or whatever it was, isn't it?
So it wasn't until we were dealing with Freddie and his diagnosis that a paediatrician actually said to me, it's a possibility that you may have autism or ADHD or both. And I'm like, okay. And she was asking me some questions, and I'm like, kind of relates to how
you did the online screener as well, didn't you?
Yeah,
and, both of us did the online screener, and it came up that we were both autistic.
But
we're like, okay, but the thing
think
is,
women and girls hide it really well, though.
Yeah.
So, like
They're known to mask severely.
the
Yeah.
majority won't get diagnosed because
Yeah.
they don't know that they have it.
Yeah.
One of the biggest things that they asked was like my emotions, how do I deal with it and whatnot. My thing is I bottle them up and they like just explode like a volcano, and I can't help it. They just come out. But it gets to a point where it's so overwhelming, I end up just like bursting into tears, and I don't know how to deal with it. I've never sort of been able to understand it, but it wasn't until talking to Freddie's paediatrician about it that it was like, okay.
It's the Coke bottle analogy. The way we tend to describe it is a Coke bottle. You pick it up every time there is something that's giving you input. You pick up a Coke bottle and you shake it and you put it down, and then something happens again. And it could be smells, sounds, taste. It could be anything around you. It could be how much you've slept. It could be, is the crease on your socks rubbing on your toe? Anything. And every time something affects you, you pick up that Coke bottle and you shake it. All you have to do is just tap the top and it explodes.
Yeah.
Whereas most people, something annoys them or something gets to them, they shake the Coke bottle and then they release it so it doesn't explode. It just fizzles out. It's the analogy we tend to use with a lot of people. Particularly, we find it more in females, but also in children as well. They go through the Coke bottle scenario quite a lot because we don't always necessarily see what's affecting them because they may not be able to communicate it. But yeah, literally everything gives you an input. It's whether you can unscrew that lid slightly to release it, or whether it just builds and builds and builds until suddenly it just erupts like a volcano.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest struggles, is being able to explain how I'm feeling. I can't get the words out. Like, they're there, but I can't get it out. It's a really big struggle for me.
You also suffered a lot with anxiety and depression up until the point we met.
Well, and
then I turned into the medication.
I've been on antidepressants and anxiety medication since I was 14, and I'm now 27. And they always put it down to depression and anxiety, but I've always struggled with it.
Did the tablets help?
No.
There you go.
I went through exactly the same thing. So from 11 years old, I was described as manic depressive. I was put on antipsychotics, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. And it was only when I actually started working in the industry with autistic people that I was just like, okay, tick box, tick box, tick box, tick box. I'm thinking, okay, right, this is sounding very familiar. a lot of people are misdiagnosed with mental health because
Yeah.
the quickest, easiest, and cheapest thing to do is to throw medication at it in the hopes that it numbs you to the point that you don't have the sensory inputs anymore.
Yeah.
And the medication doesn't help. If anything, it gives you an intolerance to it if you need it later on in life. I was
Yeah.
diagnosed at 33, so I had 22 years of misdiagnosis and medication, and to the point, I mean, they prescribed me antipsychotics because I wasn't coping for a certain situation that happened to me. I wasn't coping with it. I was given antipsychotic medication, and I'm like, but
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. I don't need this. And it was only when I was diagnosed and I started to research and more so when I looked into it from like a company side of things, and I really started delving into the autism side, that I was just like, wow, the amount of people, particularly girls and women, that are misdiagnosed with mental health. What you said about not being able to describe how you're feeling, right? What I'll do is I'll send Wayne a message. There's just one word. It's called alexithymia or alexithymia, depending on where you're from or medical professions. It's basically where you can't put into words what you're feeling, and it builds and builds and builds. I will send Wayne through some stuff for you to have a read. It's a way of identifying, not with putting it into words, but it's colours, it's objects around you and things like that. And it might actually help you to identify it, and that can actually help you get that release before you explode. So I'll send some stuff through to Wayne for you later if you want.
I think that would be helpful because, like, Wayne knows when there's something up, but he'll constantly ask me, like, are you all right? Are you okay? Like, are you sure you're all right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, and the truth. And
I'm verbally beating it out of her. You know, I'm like, I keep asking her and asking her and asking her until she gets to the point where she's like, right, there is something wrong.
And I either just burst into tears or I just find that I get myself so angry that I'm like erupting, and I also end up in tears, and it's a really big struggle for me.
Do you find it easier to write things down
than
to talk
sometimes
about things?
But I was also put through therapy when I was in secondary school. And instead of talking, my therapist would get me to do pictures.
Yeah.
That helped, but then after I finished school, all the support and that I was getting just stopped.
Yeah.
And it was just constantly getting palmed off with, oh, you've got depression, you've got anxiety, and it was backwards and forwards on and off medications that just weren't helping. And it got to a point where I ended up on 400 milligrams of a medication that I found out later on that this medication, you shouldn't go up to 400 milligrams on it.
Yeah.
And
it was, like you say, though, it was so easy to sort of palm things off and say it's this and it's that. When they suspected that there was something not quite right with me back in early 80s, they were all like, oh no, just cut down on his sugar. Stop giving him so much chocolate. Take him down the field and running around. That's the reason why he is being so disruptive in classes. And it turned out it wasn't the fact that I was being disruptive. When they looked into it, they were giving out the work, but I was doing the work so quick that I was finishing before everybody else. And that was when I became disruptive. So a child psychologist turned around and said, his brain is not being taxed enough. He needs to go up a year. And the headmaster wouldn't have it because I upset him over a project about the Bible. And he didn't like it.
Wrong, yeah.
So he point blank refused to put me up a year. And so I carried on being disruptive. But up until 1984, autism wasn't around. It didn't exist. And then all of a sudden, autism comes to the fray. And the processes of looking into the different forms of autism then start coming out. And then you get to the stage where there's so many different forms of autism, but where does it stop?
Yeah.
You know, next week there could be another type of autism come out that has completely different symptoms to everything else, and it will get put under that same banner. And like I said about Asperger's syndrome, it will get given a name and then it will just disappear unless you specifically ask for a specific diagnosis. You'll just get told it's ASD.
I do
Yeah,
feel
definitely.
like it is part of, like I said last time, of like human evolution and the brain, and you know, so many things going on, right? I just wanted to ask you, Wayne, and your partner, does it help having that diagnosis? Has it really helped you with understanding a lot more?
Yeah, well, with as soon as I found out Ethan was diagnosed, we were told to go on something called the Maze course, which was 12 weeks on understanding autism. I then since have done an MVQ level 2 in understanding autism as well. And although it was online, it involved a lot of reading. There was so much reading, it was unbelievable. But that enabled me to understand more about how an autistic mind works.
Yeah,
exactly. And how to counteract the issues that they may have. And we've now experienced it with Freddie. If he has a meltdown, we can get him to calm down by telling him to blow his bubbles. And he takes a big deep breath in and he pretends he's blowing pretend bubbles. Yeah. And it usually calms him down. Or he's got his teddy bear, Bluey, his little blue teddy bear. He used to take that with nursery with him towards the last, 2 months? 2 or 3 months of nursery. He started taking it with him every day because that was one of the things from home that he could associate with me and Ellen, and it calmed him down that way. But it wouldn't be long before something else would come along and trigger him off, and Bluey or the bubbles might not work. So we'd have to look into something else to try and calm him down. But it has helped us, knowing full well what both Ethan and Freddie have got. Looking into things and doing our own research and our own courses has helped us no end, because it's opened the doors that we weren't given when Ethan was first diagnosed. So we were able to look at people like Autism Anglia, all these charities that helped with autistic sufferers. And we were finding these avenues that we could go down to help them, which we wouldn't have got any other way. So it has helped no end.
That's amazing. I wanted to ask that question because for anybody watching who feels, you know, maybe they are living with autism or they know somebody or they have children, that there's always help and hope, right? And education now about this.
Absolutely.
Which is so important.
It's a definite thing. You're never going to get somebody pop up and say, now your child has got autism, here's a massive book of all the different charities and all the groups that you can join. It's never going to happen.
No,
it's not.
This is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, they might give you a little they might give you a little leaflet and say, these are the main charities that you can contact, but they don't give you the smaller things like the local council funded organisations or charities or courses that you can attend free of charge to help you understand your child's situation.
So if I may, Belle, they have to talk to Belle, right? Anybody watching wants any info on that or anything, Belle is our mastermind, definitely.
I don't. The one thing I will say is, yes, I work in autism. I do a lot of training around autism and neurodiversity. I am neurodiverse. I will give people as much knowledge as I possibly can. I will try and help you as much as I possibly can. I will put you in touch with people. Like if there's anybody that's watching that needs some advice, if you literally Google the Autism Training Network, it comes straight through to me. I will gladly help anybody. I'm not out here to make money. Yes, I run a business, I'm not out here to make money. I just want a neurodiverse world to be a lot more inclusive than what it actually is. So yeah, I will quite happily help anybody that needs it.
Do you want to put your group into or the business into the comments section, Belle?
Yeah.
That way people will be able to access you directly then. Because I think this has been the ongoing issue for so many years. Is it's okay getting the diagnosis, but it's not okay getting the support.
Right.
And that's it in a nutshell. The support, it's okay having a diagnosis and being told that your child has got ASD, and then you're left to it. You literally have now got to take your lives in your own hands and literally pull forward and go, right, this is what we've got to do now. We've got to find the organisations that are going to help my child or myself, and help within the system to make our lives better. Because no one's going to knock on your door, and no one's going to knock on your door and go, hello, I'm from the government. Here's a great big book of all the stuff that you can do to get help.
Yeah.
It's
Nick,
never
were you
gonna
going to say something?
Was I? No, I was actually just I was gonna say, speaking of comments and stuff, I was actually gonna catch up on it because we're really behind on them. So, because what I've seen in the comments has been quite interesting. I'll start off here real quick with Tom. It says that there is a school across the street from my mom's house, has been there forever. In the last few decades, it became a special needs school. I just recently found out that it's been closed down for some time. According to him, he said that I think that they got in trouble for leaving a special needs kid on the bus because they didn't do thorough checks when leaving the bus. So they have appeared a couple times with them. Let's see what else we got. I don't know if I'm going to be able to exactly read every single one because there's so many of them now. Should not have to kick and scream to get things done. Noreen also here says some of the schools in this area don't have the correct amount of suitability. I cannot even say that word. Trained staff. Thanks. And trained staff, and that's the reason for some of the issues of not taking the more complicated children. Okay, totally agree. Phantom Seekers. Okay, Robert here says that happened at a kindergarten the next town over. They left a kid on the transport bus. This is obviously down in Australia, locked in for 6 hours, and the child did not survive in the heat, in the summer heat. That's awful. Terrible. Noreen also said, my friend's daughter, whole educational records disappeared, and records haven't changed to suit.
Yeah.
Peaceful Paranormal says in the States, unless you're rich and not a minority, you get next to no help with anything. Robert here says, we put our boys into distance education online due to them not handling the mainstream schools. Okay, I'm sure Peaceful Paranormal is left, but thanks for tuning in. Laura, who just came back, got a big one here. Problem is that the professionals who are apparently capable of dealing with these issues simply can't take my nephew, for example, my aunt who has kingship of her 8-year-old grandson. He has so many issues. He runs away from school at lunch times. His hours is disrupted, but he's the one punished. Their solution kept him at lunch. Don't allow him to go on trips. This is better now as I attend meetings with my aunt. I have screamed bloody murder. I think that's what she meant to say. I've asked for an educational psychologist, and unfortunately, I can't read the rest of it because it didn't show. It's not showing up.
Yeah.
See if there's anything else here. Okay, now Eileen also says people in suits make up the rules with no practical experience. Of course, Laura, once again, I'm so sorry for Lenny, but the system is broken, and it's innocent people and children that are suffering. It infuriates me, and I don't blame her, obviously, for her feeling that way. Actually, I think we just got a couple left, so I can read these quick. Sarah Louise, government have designed it to fail so they can bring in the private sector and claim that the savior, but it's all designed so we end up with a USA-style healthcare system. Oh, we got Creole from Romania. Hi, everyone. I believe it's good to be attentive from the environment. the numbers of children with autism increased in the last years. Are some studies about environmental elements, toxicants on autism. I find them interesting to read. And okay, just got two more, and that's pretty much it. Noreen here says, I was pushed to go for therapy, which made me 100% worse. I find writing about anything easier than communicating verbally. I can communicate far better in the written word rather than the verbal. And finally, Eileen here says, this has been so interesting, so very interesting. Thanks for sharing your experiences. Hey, Joe, just shared this out. Okay, just had to get that out of the way.
But I mean, that is one of the main things, is sharing experiences.
Yeah.
And this is where groups like the Maze course works for people. When you've got 20 or 30 people, their children are all in the same boat as yours, and you're all sitting there, and one of the experiments they did, it was like a pie chart, and you had different sections of this chart, and you would fill in so much of that wedge with a certain color, and you would go away, and then a couple of weeks later you'd do that same pie chart again, using the different methods you've got of trying to calm your child down or try to get them to think about something else rather than getting overloaded with information. And you would do it again and see whether that color increased any. And using the tools that they gave us, I found that doing that worked. It did increase. And I wanted to do the Maze course again a few years later down the line to see whether it had increased again. But the problem was you could only go on that course the once because it was in such high demand. And now we've had Freddie diagnosed. They've turned around and said the same thing again. They've said, we've now got Freddie with a diagnosis. We can get you on the Maze course. So I'm thinking now I can do it again for Ethan and Freddie. I just need 2 charts.
Yeah.
But it's about getting the information and sharing it.
Yeah. I just want to say thank you, everybody. I have to go now. I have to go and sort my little girl out. And thank you so much for everything. It's been really, really interesting, really fun. And I will speak to you all soon.
Good seeing you, babe.
As always, you take care.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
And for those, I mean, I'm sure you guys already know too, Lois had to leave early because she had a family emergency. So that's why she ended up leaving. Hopefully she's doing okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. But you've also talked about autism. It's like the effect on the parents as well and what they're going through because they don't understand. They think they've got a naughty child half the time.
Oh, yeah.
And it has a knock-on effect massively. It affects everything in the family, every person, you know, the grandparents, the parents, the friends, the neighbours, everything. Yeah. And it's massive until you find out what exactly is going on. Then you're labelled.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with parents though is that they get blamed as well. Like parents get told your child is the way they are because of your behaviour. You know, before any diagnosis, it's just give them a good whack. That will do. Oh, it never hurt me when I was younger. I never played up and this kind of thing. But parents also don't get heard. I work with some absolutely incredible parents. We actually develop content together. And the amount of parents that are literally pulling their hair out because they are trying to get their child to school in the morning, and because there's such a high level of anxiety caused by school, you get the child who is refusing to go to school. The parents then phone up the school and say, oh, she's not coming in today. And it's the parents that are getting penalised. And, you know, you turn around to them and say, right, you come here and try and get them to school because they're being told, just bring them in the pyjamas. If they don't want to get dressed, bring them in the pyjamas. And it's like when you have got a child who is physically assaulting you to stop you from grabbing them and putting them in the car, you know, the parents are getting hit from all sides.
Yeah.
And then you get the diagnosis, and then it's just like, there you go, off you go. And
The thing is, as well, is
they're just left reeling.
it's sometimes as well. I mean, we have this with Tamsin. They are suspecting now that Tamsin's got ADHD as well.
It was the school that picked it
And
up.
the school picked it up. And we've had problems where Tamsin would not get into her school uniform in the morning. And the school did exactly what you said. They said, bring her in her pajamas, but bring her uniform with her, just in case she wants to get changed into it once at school. That's fine. That's brilliant. But when you're walking to the school, because our school's only 2 minutes walk away, when you start walking up to the school and you see other parents looking at you, oh, why is your child wearing pajamas? They start asking questions, or they see Freddie misbehaving, or your child's unruly, and they blame us.
There was an incident a couple of months ago where I'd just taken Tamsin into school, and Freddie's nursery it's literally directly opposite each other, about 30 seconds in between the two. I'd just taken Tamsin into school, and we were going over to the nursery to drop Freddie off, and Freddie was having a bit of a meltdown because he didn't want to go into nursery, but I needed him to because I had appointments to go to. And he was kicking off about it. And I heard parents say, that boy is so naughty and disrespectful. And I just remember turning around and looking at this parent, and at the top of my voice in the school playground, I went, what the bleep did you just say?
Yeah.
I'm like, don't you understand? He's got autism. Are you being serious right now? I really lost my temper with that parent. I said, maybe you should go and research autism and see what it actually means. He is not naughty. He is not disrespectful. He can't help the way he is.
It makes it worse, though, doesn't it? Because they look at the child, and they go, "Oh, he's unruly, he's misbehaving, he's this, he's that, and blah blah blah," and they blame us.
Yeah.
And then, as a result, that parent then goes round to other parents and go, "Oh, I'd stay clear of that kid's mum. I'd stay clear of that kid's dad. They let their kids do all sorts, and they get all trouble." And they're like the other parents, and they've actually approached one parent that actually knew that Freddie had ADHD, and straight away she bit back. She turned out apparently the parent had gone, I'd stay away from them and their kids because the parents don't look after the kids or anything like that. And that parent then turned around and went, that child is autistic, just the same as my child is. So you might want to wind your neck in.
But one of the funny things was one of these parents that said, Freddie was just a naughty, disrespectful little boy, just so happened to work at the same nursery that Freddie was in.
Yeah.
And she'd seen us going into that nursery and doing his one plans and everything every month.
She knew all about it.
She knew all about it and still was like, oh no, he's just a naughty little boy. And it got to the point where all of the parents up at the school and at the nursery turned against me because Freddie was just such a naughty, disrespectful little boy.
The word had spread like wildfire.
I've had that. And when mine were little, because mine are 46, 47 now, the boys. When they were little, and one of them was autistic. And I used to get the parents knocking on the door, asking me to smack my child, right? And then, well, what for? Oh, well, they're putting dog poo on our garden. That was one of them. And I found it was their kids doing it. It was their kids. I scraped it all up and I put it on the doorstep. Then they came to me and demanded that I smacked the child. So, and it ended up like parents fighting. I'm only little, but I tell you what, I took them on. But they'd come and knock on the door, all like this, and I'd face them, and then they'd have to go. You know, there's no way I'm going to smack my child because he was not well. I didn't know what was wrong, but I knew there was something wrong.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's that.
even with a child that isn't autistic, you know, if someone turns up at your front door and says, "Oh, your child's been doing this," you wouldn't straight away turn around and discipline your child. You'd want to find out what was going on, whether your child did do it or not, and then you would discipline your child.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't discipline your child without knowing the facts first.
And then I'd have all the old dears in the street saying, "Do you know what? Your lads have got the nicest manners I've ever heard." Nice. Are you sure?
I mean,
Are you sure? Because when they come home from school, I think they have to behave in school, and it's like a boiling pot, isn't it? They come home and they explode.
Yeah.
Explode because
Freddie's the same.
That's all they've got. They had to explode. And
they kept it in all day long,
Yeah.
So it's like a boiling pot for them.
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 months or so that Freddie was at nursery, it got to a point where I was having to pick him up before he'd finished his day at nursery or his morning, because he was bottling up his emotions so much whilst he was there that he couldn't keep it in until he got home, and he was exploding and lashing out at other children.
He would have an overload, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
And they'd call us up and say, "Can you come and get him?"
There was one member of staff at that nursery, I'm not going to say their name, but was absolutely fantastic with him. Absolutely amazing. I can't fault them for how much work and patience and whatnot that they had with Freddie. And when Freddie would go into nursery, it'd be straight to this person. And at the end of the day, when you'd go pick him up, or if he was on his half day, he'd be with this person having just the biggest cuddle ever. This person would be the only person that'd be able to calm him down whilst he was at nursery.
And it's a shame, because the team themselves, apart from the odd one or two individuals, they were brilliant with him. They worked on his one plan. They got all of the stuff together when they were asked for it. They passed it all over to the school so that when he starts reception in September, they've got all the information they need for him. And the worst part of it is that nursery is now closed
because they couldn't get the funding
shut down.
to stay open.
No more funding. It will not reopen in September. So all the children that were still left to go to that nursery have now got to go somewhere else. And I'm thinking to myself, those poor staff, they knew what was wrong with Freddie. Their talents are now going to be wasted unless they can find somewhere else to fit into.
Nursery, that amazing that when we applied for his EHCP, they sent over 110 pages worth of evidence. And it was still denied.
Wow.
Oh my God.
They were the ones that the council turned around and said there is insufficient evidence. 110 pages.
And I've just sat there thinking to myself, how can you say there is insufficient evidence when we have 110 pages worth of evidence? And I had a folder full of evidence, and this folder started off at about this thick. It's now this thick.
Do you actually do you sometimes think to yourself that these people in charge of these places single you out so they push you onto the side? Do you think that they do that?
Yeah.
I think they single certain people out,
Part of me wonders now that maybe they are trying to knuckle down harder simply because there are so many people putting in for diagnosis now that they're going, hang on a minute, are they trying to work the system, trying to get more out of it? And so they're trying to be a little bit more stricter on allowing things like the EHCP. Although the parent doesn't benefit from an EHCP, the school does.
Yeah.
And then the child, in theory, the child should then benefit from that school receiving that extra money. But it's knowing that system in the first place because obviously when a parent gets their child diagnosed with ADHD or high functioning autism, straight away they go on disability living allowance until they're 16 or 18. I can't remember which one it is now. I get confused because of the new you've got to stay in school till you're 18 thing. And then obviously for my case, it was 8 years before I discovered I could claim carers allowance.
Yeah.
But what that has done is that has enabled me to say, right, if Ethan needs anything, he's got his disability living allowance. But if I want to take him out somewhere for the day, I've got my carers allowance.
Yeah.
And that helps. But that also then helps the whole family as well. Ellen gets it for Freddie. Freddie gets disability living allowance and Ellen gets the carers allowance. But it's not something that we have done on purpose to take advantage of the system. It's done because it helps.
I told my father, so-called, that I was being referred to be tested for ADHD and autism, and his response was, "There's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. You're just doing it for the money." I'm like, no, it's not me that suggested getting tested. It was my son's pediatrician that suggested I get tested. And he was like, "No, you're just doing it for the money." I'm like, I couldn't care less about the money. That's not what is important. I'm now at that stage where I just want answers as to why I struggle with things and why I do certain things. And it wasn't until recently that I can't remember who said it, but I have these tendencies to sit here and pull my hair out one strand at a time. And I didn't realise that could be associated with autism, or I sit here and I'm fiddling with my fingers like I've been sat here doing. I cannot keep still. I have to be fiddling with something. And it wasn't until recently that I found out that it is associated with autism and whatnot. And I'm like, okay.
And that's one of the main reasons why I won't go ahead and get diagnosed, because people say you're only doing it for the money.
To have a parent turn around to you and say, "There's absolutely nothing wrong with you, you're just doing it for the money." And I'm like, how would you know? You walked out on me when I was 3, and then you chose somebody else over your own children when I was 11. How would you know? You've not been in my life or seen me every day to understand what I'm going through. It was like when I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. "Oh, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you. You're perfectly fine. You're just sad." I'm like, are you being for real right now? And this person, my father, had a mental breakdown and just turned around to me and said, "Oh, you're just sad." And
do you hear this a lot, Belle? Belle, do you hear a lot of this? What's your experience with all this?
So I've actually seen the flip side of that. I have, because not as part of this company, but another company that I'm a director for as well, we do ADHD and ADOS2 autism assessments. I have had parents offering me money to diagnose their child because they get more benefits. They get the carers allowance, they get this, they get that, they get the other. And you see families who are genuinely struggling. You see parents coming in with children, because I make a point of, I will go and sit in at least 50% of all assessments. You see parents genuinely coming in and they look exhausted. The eyes are sunken back. They don't care about the money. They just need the help. They need the diagnosis to get the help. And they've said, whatever happens, even if it's not ASD or ADHD, we will still keep fighting to find out what it is so that we can get the correct support. Then you get families that come in, because we gather a lot of evidence to do an ADHD or an autism assessment. we have to gather a lot of evidence, and we talk to everybody who knows that child or that person. I try and talk to them to build up that picture. And you've got like these pretend parents, as I like to call them, and they're going, oh, you know, they're smashing up the room, and they're throwing feces everywhere, and they're smearing, and they're this and that and the other. And you talk to like siblings, or you talk to aunties or uncles, and they're going, no, they ain't doing any of that. She just don't want to work. And it's like, and you do get people trying to screw the system to get more money.
Yeah,
I've seen people say things like, "Oh, he's got autism. He's doing this, this, and this." I'm like, has he though? I mean, last year we went through 5 TVs in the space of 5 months because of Freddie smashing them, and it got to the point where we were buying these cheap ones off of Facebook Marketplace just so we could.
so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Rather than going out and buying an expensive TV, we just bought cheap ones off Facebook.
But he also like won't use the toilet. He finds comfort in his nappies, but he finds more comfort when they're dirty,
when
so
they're
to
full.
speak. And he will not have his bum changed unless it is on his terms.
Yep.
And you could be fighting with him, I say fighting, trying to get him to have his bum changed for 3 hours. But he's recently just had a referral to the incontinence clinic. It's just hard. Like these parents saying, "Oh, my child's got autism because they're doing this and they're doing that." I'm like, no. You
They might display traits of autism, but they're not actually autistic. Yeah,
it's kind of a piss take, if you know what I mean. And it's very, very frustrating because they don't understand what you're going through. And it gets to a point for me where some days I'm really struggling with Freddie and I cannot cope, and I just have to take myself out. Like I will just, I won't say a word, and I will pick up my phone, I will pick up my headphones, and I just have to take myself out for an hour.
I mean, we even started doing charity walks.
Yeah.
Last month we were doing walking for pancreatic cancer.
Yeah.
And this month I'm walking for Help for Heroes. And doing that is a bit of a release for us because we're then able to go off out. One of us will stay with the children while one goes off out and does their walk. Then as soon as they come back, we swap over. And other times, if it's at the weekend, we take the children with us. And we'll walk along the river path in towards Colchester. And the amount of amusement they get. And one of the biggest things that really got us laughing, and it brought us, in a sense, closer together as a family unit, was there was myself, Ellen, Tamsin and Freddie, and we went along the river path, and it was quite warm. There was a few clouds in the sky, but it was quite warm. And as we were walking along, saw these clouds coming in, and then it was this fine wispy rain. And we thought, right, then the wind picked up and it came in sideways. So we were getting wetter and wetter. Then all of a sudden it turned into that thick blob rain.
Yeah.
And it got harder and harder. It came down faster and faster, sideways, upways, downways, you name it, it came down.
It was like rain, hail and snow.
Then it turned into hailstones. So we were getting bombed at the same time. We were in the middle of nowhere on a river path. There was nowhere to get protection from this hail that was coming down. We had a good 200-meter walk to get to any trees to get cover. We finally got to these trees, and all of a sudden there was a moment of madness. We started walking back home again. We'd normally do it in a complete circle, but we turned around and went back the way we came because it was the quickest route. And all of a sudden, we ended up jumping in just about every puddle we came across. We were soaking wet already, so we thought, so what? we're soaking wet. We can't get any wetter than we already are. So every puddle we came in, we jumped in, we kicked out water, and we just whale of a time. And it was so much fun. Even as a grown adult, I peed myself laughing at watching the kids enjoying themselves and having fun.
Great.
But we were able to unwind as well.
If you can't go out and come home all muddy, there's something wrong. That's right.
Yeah. Exactly. It was good because it enabled us to unwind at the same time.
Yeah.
But without doing that, we would be here and tempers would fray, and then either I would go off and do my own little thing in the garden on my own, or Ellen would go off for a walk to be on her own for 5 minutes.
See, but it was either go for a walk or go up to the bedroom and put my headphones in, but have the music on full blast and just lay there and cry because.
And as a parent, the only time we get to relax is when we go to sleep.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as we wake up, I mean, I'll get up 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm always up before my alarm clock. But as soon as I'm awake, I know Freddie's awake. He just waits for me to wake up, and then he'll come over and he'll give me a cuddle in bed, and we'll just lay there for half an hour, and then we both get up, come downstairs. Then the rest of the kids come down as well, and then it's non-stop right the way through. Even when they're at school, there's always something for us to do. So we're non-stop till they come home. Then it's non-stop again, and then when they go to bed, we can sit there and go, "Oh, thank God for that." And Ethan's brilliant because Ethan looks after himself. You know, he's amazing because he just gets on with what he has to get on with and does what we ask him to do when we ask him to do it. And then when he's tired, he goes off up to bed. And that's it. And it's just mainly Tamsin and Freddie, but it's the amount of work that we have to do. And then by the time they've gone to bed, we're just like, seriously, we've still got this to do, we've got that to do, blah, blah, blah. And all these other little things build up. And then we sort of say to ourselves, we've got to fit time for all of this to be put in place.
It's like not even being able to have the 2 minutes peace just to go to the toilet. Like everywhere I go to just try and escape for like a minute.
Yeah.
Where's
Mummy?
It's always Freddie saying, "Where's Mummy gone? Where is she?" And Wayne will say, "I don't know where she is. Go find her." So it gives it Freddie a little bit longer to. It
gives Ellen a bit more time.
Yeah. Try and have that minute's peace because Freddie can be quite demanding. He wants to cuddle. There's no wait. 1 minute, I just need to do this. It's no, I want to cuddle, I want it now. And if I don't get my cuddle, I'm going to kick off.
Even when we've tried the now and then system, where you turn around to them and say, let Mummy do this, and then she'll give you a cuddle.
Yeah.
The bit that you said at the beginning, don't come into it. It's the cuddle he wants.
Yeah.
And so you can't do that bit first. And he just keeps it. He'll push and he'll push and he'll push. And you can feel yourself getting angrier all the time because he keeps pushing at you. And then in the end, you have to stop what you're doing and go and give him the cuddle, because if you don't, he's going to melt.
Yeah, you've got to have something to leave her with to sort of like chastise them with, really. Right, you do this, you can have that in the nicest way. Way.
We even tried the colour cards.
Hopefully they'll go for it.
We've tried the pet cards. We've tried the now and then. We tried sound timers. He couldn't understand them being used at nursery and at home as well. Like, to him, they were a nursery thing. They weren't a home thing.
Sound timer was a classic, wasn't it? It's a 2 minute sound timer. And you turn the sound timer over and you'd say to him, when the sound runs out, then we'll do this. And then all of a sudden the sound timer would disappear. And you'd be like, where's the sound timer gone? And it would be months before we'd see it again, and we'd find it under carpet, under the sofa, in the sofa. They'd end up all over the place, and they've even ended up being broken on purpose, so that 2-minute timer becomes an eternity. And you're like, seriously, Freddie. And like we say about the TVs, 5 TVs in 5 or 6 months. And in the end, we just said, well, we can't keep doing this. We then got a decent TV and we put it up on the wall. So it's out of his reach, but it doesn't stop him from throwing stuff at him.
Yeah.
So he'll pick up his bottle and he'll throw it at the TV. So we thought we'll get some Perspex glass and put it in front of the TV, so that if he throws a bottle or a cup or something at it, it's not going to damage the telly.
Yeah.
Then we saw how much the Perspex was, and we're like, nah, maybe not.
I know
We're not going to bother.
brand new television, right? And their autistic little 3-year-old went up to it and tried to cut a picture out with the scissors. Oh! Anyway, they sent it back, and they said it came like that, and they got a new one.
Yeah. The one thing, like when I'm working with parents and things, because we do a lot of parenting workshops and things like that. Being a parent is hard. Being a parent of a neurodivergent child is even harder. And the one thing throughout any communication that we have with parents or anything is we say to them, you are human at the end of the day. You're not a robot. Yeah. Your tolerance isn't unlimited. You are human. You have human emotions. So it is okay for you to get frustrated. It is okay for you to lose your temper. You know, you are human at the end of the day. You have to be kind to yourself, because there are a lot of people out there that will be pointing the finger going, he's the way he is because of you guys, or you should do this, you should do that, and da, 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 da. But actually, you guys as parents of neurodivergent children are doing the best thing you possibly can. I mean, you do need to be kind to yourself.
It can be frustrating. Like, I can't allow Freddie to go walk down the street. I can't take him into town unless he has his disability pushchair, because he is a major flight risk.
We can't even go shopping, can we?
No, and as much as he hates getting into it, and I hate the fact that he kicks off when he gets into it, I know that I have to push on with it to get him in. Otherwise, we cannot go out, because he is that much of a flight risk. As soon as that front door's open, he's gone.
Many people turn around to us and say, why don't you do online shopping? They get it delivered to your door. And I'm like, that's fine, but you're taking that, how can I put it, that privilege of going shopping. I enjoy going to the supermarket and looking through the shelves and finding all the reduced items and things like that. Yeah. You don't, like things like, I mean, tonight, our local supermarket has got one of those Yo sushi bars. But tonight they had, what was it? Korean sticky chicken stuff with noodles and rice. And they knocked it down to £5 for a big portion.
Wow.
And it was a big portion, couldn't eat it all. I just ended up eating what was left of the chicken, and that was it. But you can't get those sort of bargains when you shop online. So we had to take the children with it. Well, we took Tamsin and Freddie with us. Problem was, they will get in the trolley, and within 5 seconds of walking away from the car, one of them's trying to get out, or the other one will start stamping on the food. They don't want to sit in the seat. Then they get out the trolley and they're running off down the aisles and they're screaming and shouting. And you're like, right, okay, any more and we're back to the car. They're quiet for 5 minutes and then it all starts off again. So what we learned to do was go shopping while both of them, while Tamsin was at school and Freddie was in nursery all day, so that the things we need to get done, we can do without having the children around. But then we have to watch the time all the time. We're constantly looking at our watches. We've got to be back for 2:15 because we've then got to go up to the nursery to pick Freddie up.
Yeah.
So we're limited to what we can do and when we can do it.
It's stressful. It's very stressful.
Even in September when Freddie starts school, we're not going to have that day of us just being able to go out into town or to Tesco's, because he's going to be on a reduced timetable. He's only doing 2 hours a day. So we're going to have to try and get all of our shopping done within them 2 hours, but that includes getting back home, getting in the car, getting to where we need to go, getting back, getting that away, and then back down to the school to pick him up.
And it's difficult for us because my parents live in Corfu.
Yep.
Ellen's mum has fibromyalgia, so she's not always there to babysit all the time.
Yeah.
So my parents aren't there at all. Ellen's mum is not always able to babysit, so we can't rely on a babysitter to look after either Tamsin or Freddie or both while we go off to the shop.
Yeah.
So we have to do it when we haven't got any kids around, but you miss out on a lot of stuff if you do online shopping. So it puts more strain on us because we have to take them to the shop with us. And that's when you're walking around and it's like you're in a zoo, but you're the one that's in the cage.
Yeah.
And everybody's looking at you because your kids, Freddie will be sitting in the trolley and he'll be screaming and shouting, or he'll be kicking me in the private parts because I'm the one pushing the trolley and he's got a nasty kick on him. And everybody will be looking and going, oh my God, fancy bringing them to the supermarket. And so many times I've wanted to turn around and go, well, all right then, you take my child home and you babysit him while I come here and do my shopping then. Because until I've got a babysitter, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah,
They don't see it.
The only person that really understands what it's like for me and Wayne is my sister, because my nephew is autistic. He's just a few months older than Freddie, but she gets it, she understands it, and she can relate to it. But it's not like she can just come down and watch Freddie and Tamsin so we can go shopping, because she has a little baby of her own, so it's not easy for her.
And there's distance as well.
There's distance. But having somebody that understands is so helpful. But like at the moment, we're trying to find somewhere we can get like a disability car seat from, because he climbs out of his car seat when we are in the car. It's so dangerous because he's got one of them 5-point harnesses on his car seat, and we brought a Houdini clip that goes on it, and he's like, how do I undo that? And then we brought the
other seatbelt clips, and he managed to break them, didn't he? So he didn't have to use them.
Buckle covers. He managed to break that and get his out of that. So then we've got this thing that slots into his car seat that goes across his lap, which covers the harness, and the seatbelt goes across it. No, you can open that and climb out of that. And I'm like, it's getting to the point where it's too dangerous for us to take him out of the car. But because there's no like major shops around us, we've only got little corner shops. We can't get our full stop that we need. So we have to take him out of the car.
It makes you feel like you have to get one of those dog cages in the boot and have to stick him in that, because you know that's the only way he's not going to get out. But you can't be seen to do that. If you were to do that, you'd have the police around in your car, and you'd be in jail before you knew it.
Yeah.
But he gets out of it, and the thing is, we'd be halfway down the road, and all of a sudden you hear click, and you're like, no.
We need something that's going to keep him in when we are driving, because he has no sense of danger. He will just undo it and climb out and be, oh, this is fun. Or like if the rare chance that he's walking, he will just run straight out in front of the car.
He is totally unaware of danger.
Yeah.
Mm.
And just trying to find some support with like having him do these things is a struggle.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it really
Feels
is.
like you've got nowhere to run to sometimes.
Yeah,
Just
like,
you feel like you're cornered and there's no way out. There's
Yeah.
no light at the end of the tunnel, but there will be light at the end of the tunnel. You'd all
I mean,
learn about everything about him and the
the
children themselves.
only,
And it's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
the only light that I've found at the moment is his paediatrician has recently prescribed him melatonin because otherwise he will not sleep. He's been on it for a month, but he's not having it every night. No,
If he's had a calming day, so he hasn't really been up to too much, then that's when he tends to have the most difficulty getting to sleep. If he's been physically active,
depending on how he is
when he goes to bed or what time it is when he goes to bed, he might be all right. So you can sort of give him the melatonin and he was on count. And the first couple of times he did that, didn't he? He literally fell asleep in our arms. But then other times you could give him the melatonin and he'd go to sleep for an hour. And then after that, he'd wake up again. And it'll take 2 hours to put him back to sleep again. It's almost as if the melatonin hasn't worked at all.
Yes.
It's like his body's rejected it, you know, and I'm thinking we've got to find better ways of doing it. We've used lights, we've used calming music, and sometimes we've even thought maybe it's because at the moment he sleeps in the same room as us. And sometimes we think maybe it's because we're not there or one of us isn't there in the room as well.
He's conscious about
and he wakes up and he sees one of us isn't there, and so he gets out of bed and he comes downstairs, and we'd be like, no, it's all right, Freddie, we'll take you back up the stairs, we're coming to bed soon ourselves. So we'll put him in his bed and then we'll give it half an hour and then we'll slowly creep up and we'll go to sleep as well. But it's always first thing in the morning, he's the first person up and he waits for me to get up. And then we'll sit there. And I think that has been one of the best things that I know my relationship with Freddie is pretty good. Is when I wake up and he wakes up, he will get out of his bed, he'll come over to me on my side of the bed because I'm next to his, and he'll come over and he'll come and give me a cuddle, and we'll just sit there looking at my phone, putting up my little posts, and he'll tell me off for going on to a game to update me game, and then he'll go, can we go downstairs now, Daddy? I want some biscuits for breakfast. So I'm like, okay, we're all up now, so we'll head downstairs, and that's when everybody else then starts getting up. And it's weird, but it's having that connection, but it's in a sense it's putting yourself down to their level as well. Because it helps you understand them a lot more, and then when you talk to them, it helps them to understand you a bit. But there's only so much of that you can do before you get to a level where you can't do any more than you've already done. Because they're not at that level of understanding quite yet. And then once they're at that level, then you can move on a little bit more. And it's a slow progress. But it's one of those things of it will, given time, you'll get there. But it's the struggle you have in getting there in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. That was real.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. Unfortunately, however, guys, we do have to wrap things up because I believe Joe is going to be starting his next show in a few minutes. But I got to say real quick, this has been a really interesting conversation for this episode. So this, I don't even really know what to say. I mean, with what we've talked about, definitely blew me away in my case, and there's no doubt that I'm sure we're probably going to do like a part 3 of this eventually, because I just think there's still just so much more to talk about about this important, very, very important subject matter.
And I want to thank the Sedans at Castle Sedan
Yeah.
Spookenori Castle. Get it right.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all these experiences, because I think you've spoken out for what a lot of people out there are going through, and nothing's been spoken about it.
I think it's important. It's important that not just other people with autistic children hear the things that can be done to help, but it's also a case of people that have got standard neurotypical children hear it as well, because they're the ones that ostracize us, saying we're bad parents, we should learn to calm them down a bit more. They're the ones that don't understand, that really should understand, because they're ostracizing us for something that's beyond our control. And so they need to learn more as well.
I always say people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, people around here don't throw stones; they throw bricks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it is true. It is true. I think it's not spoken about enough. I think it still really is a taboo subject.
Yeah.
And
it's really stigmatized.
You mention autism, and people will clam up.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand it.
They just don't. And I think, in my personal opinion, as long as we continue with these conversations, especially, with involving autism awareness, I think hopefully we could try to spread the word. Oh, geez, Amanda just showed. What's up, Amanda? Unfortunately, we're just about to be ending in just another minute or so. But
bye.
But I will say this though. Yeah, like I said, I think as long as we continue on with these type of conversations about it, hopefully, this can make, in a way to kind of grow for more people to talk about and be aware about when it comes to not just with autism itself, but also with other types of mental disabilities as well.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. This is the thing. I think anybody that is not physically or mentally well tends to be pushed to one side and forgotten about.
Yeah.
Or they try to push to one side and forget about. At the end of the day, we're all human beings, and we all need to be treated exactly the same as each other. We are no different. We may just think differently than neurotypical people, but we are physically no different to anybody else, and therefore we should be treated the same.
And I always find people with autism are more intelligent than us.
Oh yeah.
Thanks. There you go, Nick. That's one for us.
Well, I weren't going to say anything, but I'm Oxford and Cambridge educated. I'll let you know.
All right, there, Wayne.
The thing is, though, I was told because I did degrees at Oxford and Cambridge, I could go to the local university and I could put that stupid hat on and go through the graduation ceremonies, and I'd got letters after me name and everything else. I'm like, I don't care. I'm learning, and that's what my brain enjoys. Ellen calls me Wangle because I come out with the weirdest questions at the weirdest of times and the weirdest of answers.
Well, it's usually just as I'm trying to get to sleep, and I'm like, did you have to do that?
Penguins have
my
knees.
After I just got it shut down so I can sleep, and I'm like,
she's literally half asleep, and I'll come out with something stupid like, can you think of a word that rhymes with orange? And she's like, did you have to do that just as I'm going to sleep? We found 2 words in the English language that rhyme with orange. So it's a myth. There are words that rhyme with orange.
Yeah. I'll read this real quick.
I'm going to have to Google that now.
What Amanda here says, it's sad children aren't taught to accept or how to interact with kids with autism. Of course, obviously, I've learned that when I was growing up. They just see her as different and bully her or not want to be near her, and I have to see the hurt that creates with her. And like I just said, that's something that I had gone through when I was younger, although not necessarily like with other kids. I mean, yes, there were those moments where I did have that issue, but for me, most of it was because of the staff members. And to me, that's even worse than other kids, because obviously you're dealing with authority figures, and they really do truly have power over you, which, as I look back now, I mean, question is, should I have fought back? Yeah, I probably should have, but I wouldn't care what the consequences were, because it gets to a point, even when it comes to a child with autism, that you just can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And thank you, Belle, for coming on tonight.
I am more than welcome. It's been really good.
Yeah, we'll definitely have another show on this real soon. And actually, since Amanda's on, I'm going to message her afterwards. Maybe we could try to get her on if she's able to, depending on her schedule. But we'll definitely have another one real soon. Of course, it's sorry that Lois had to leave early, but again, she had a family emergency. But I was able to step in and keep things running for her. So this was definitely a really good show.
Done a great show. Great show. Yeah.
Well done, guys.
Well done, definitely. For tomorrow, I know we got our Proud to Be Paranormal special. I don't know why. I already forgot who was going to be on that one, aside from us.
I think there's going to be about 9 of us, I think, in total.
Yeah,
I've done that one too.
Yeah, there was going to be a lot of. There was going to be so many. I wasn't able to remember everyone's name. So, but I'll find out afterwards when we get off. And then as far as for next Thursday, I'm not sure what we had planned. So I'm sure if Lois, when we're back on tomorrow, I'm sure Lois will make the announcement for it. I've had so much going on that unfortunately I couldn't remember the next plans for next week. So it's hard to follow with everything. But anyways, we're gonna get off because I have to get back on here in less than 2 hours, obviously, for Supernatural talk. But Belle, thanks again for coming on. Everybody here, of course, I want to thank Kate earlier for coming on as well.
Yeah.
And for everyone who was in the chat, thank you for playing along. And we'll see some of you guys tomorrow afternoon / tomorrow night for you guys. So you guys all have a great night. Take care.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night, all. Bye-bye.